All right, hello, LinkedIn and YouTube. We are live again today with Qlik's Data Brilliant Unplugged program. Today we have a special treat. We're going to talk about getting the data skills necessary for the future, and we're going to mention Qlik's academic program. So without further ado, I'm actually going to bring Lucy Bannister from Qlik's academic program onto the stage. Hello, Lucy.
Hi, Kate. How you doing?
Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Oh, you're welcome.
So before we get into the session, I do want all of the viewers to answer one question. So as you're tuning in, let us know if you are a student, if you are a professor, or other. So those are your options: student, professor, other. Just curious to see, who actually shows up. But Lucy, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself for now, and then we're going to get into Qlik's academic program.
Okay, yeah. So I have been with Qlik for coming up to 2 years now, looking after the academic program in the EMEA region. So I'm based from usually from our Barcelona office, but obviously working from home for the time being.
Yeah, how's that going for you?
Yeah. All good, except my neighbours are currently doing construction work, so I've kindly asked them to stop. So
oh my goodness. Yeah, actually, I was talking to somebody yesterday. He said it's been going on for months. And yeah, when he actually goes live as well, he said when he goes live, he has to tell them to just stop construction.
Yeah.
It gets pretty loud.
Hopefully they'll have listened to me. Let's see.
Yeah, so I'm looking now. So we got other, we've got student, we've got student from Germany, we've got other. Thank you guys for joining. Other. I like giving people options so then they know student, other. Haven't seen any professors so far. So Dr. Pittges will be the only professor up on stage here. So, all right, Lucy, so why don't you tell the audience a bit about Qlik's academic program? What is it? Who is it for?
Okay. So it's basically Qlik's completely free offering for universities, specifically university academics, so professors, researchers, and students.
Okay.
So anybody from a university level institution can apply.
Okay, so could it be undergrad and grad?
Undergrad, postgrad, anybody who is a registered student with a university level institution. Undergrad, postgrad, PhD students, we welcome everybody. And especially important to mention that it's from any discipline as well. So you don't have to be like a data science major or anything like that. We have people that join our program who are studying sports or health. So, whatever you're studying, you're welcome to join the program.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, Lucy, you can still hear me okay, right? It was kind of
I think you froze on me for a second there, but I've got you. I've got you now. Did you catch everything I said?
Okay. Not the last part. No, you said the most important thing I want to say, and then you cut off.
The most important thing I want to say is that it's students and professors from any discipline. So if you're not studying a data science related degree or anything like that, students from literally any discipline are welcome to apply.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing to point out because I would assume that it's only for like the data science specific programs. But if I'm studying to be a doctor, I can still use Qlik's program.
Absolutely. Yeah. At Qlik in general, obviously we're going to talk a lot about data literacy today, but in Qlik in general, we think that's really important, and not just, like I said, for people studying analytics or data science, but people from any background, any discipline to become data literate is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, Jillian's here, and she says you're a star for jumping in when Sarah couldn't. So.
Yeah, she had a baby 2 days ago. So yeah, I'm swept in at the last minute, but it's all good.
Yes, well, you were prepared, right? So this is good.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a backup plan.
Yeah, we do have a question here asking if working professionals can apply for that Qlik academic program.
If you are if you're a part-time student and a working professional, sure, yeah. Or you basically, when you apply to be a student member, or if you're, say, a part-time lecturer as well, we'll just ask you for some proof that you are a current student. Say a copy of your student ID with a current enrollment date. So if you're working and studying, that's no problem. You can apply.
Okay, perfect. And there's a question here for the link. So I believe the link is the one we have in the running ticker on the bottom, right? Is it?
Yeah, that's it. So if you go to that link, if you scroll down the page, you'll see a separate application form, one for students and one for professors.
So Qlik.com / academic program.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's it.
got it. Oh yeah, so I saw somebody actually put the link in there. We had Jennifer pop in and add the link. Thank you.
Thanks again.
All right, so there's another question. Is it free? I think you already mentioned that this is a fully free program.
Yeah, absolutely everything that we offer on the program, which is software, training, qualifications, is all completely free.
Mm-hmm. And then Jillian's asking, what about recent grads? So let's say I just finished school in, end of June. Can I still get access?
If you're not currently enrolled at the university, then unfortunately not. But still, on Qlik's learning site, so learning.qlik.com, there's still a whole lot of resources up there that are actually available for anybody to access. So whether you're, a new graduate or a professional that's been in your post for quite a while, there's a lot of data literacy resources up there that you can access for free. And also, there's quite a good amount of Qlik training that's free as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I've seen some of that training. I saw some data literacy training up on the site as well. Yeah,
cool. Yeah, and that's open to everybody.
Yeah, that's actually really good. So let's say I am a student or a professor. I sign up, I apply, and I get approved. What do I get after that?
Okay, so you'll get a nice welcome email from us. So that's where.
Okay, perfect. Is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
Welcome email, yay!
A welcome to an end on your own. No.
Yes.
So you'll get a welcome email, which is a kind of good place to start. So that's going to tell you everything you get access to. So that will tell you how to set up your free Qlik software. So you become a member for a year initially. So you get free access to Qlik Sense. So that's our cloud version, so the online version, and you can also authenticate a desktop version as well. And then on top of that, you get online Qlik training. So if you're brand new to Qlik, you've never used it before, the online training is a really good place to start. Lots of kind of interactive videos where you can follow along on your screen and have the software up alongside to really get to grips with everything. Once you've gone through some of that, there's then a Qlik Sense qualification that you can take as well. So students tend to really like that because it's a really nice way to show to future employers that they, have that foundation in Qlik Sense. And then, as I mentioned, there's then also data literacy training, and we also have a data analytics curriculum. So that's around more kind of theoretical concepts in data analytics, and also certifications in relation to both of those as well. And all of that's free.
So the certification is also free for students?
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay. Great. And what is that? Is that like an online exam that they can take to prove that they've learned?
Exactly. Yeah. So the Qlik Sense one, so that's once you've kind of got a good level of Qlik Sense training, then you would sit the exam. It's around 16 hours worth of training we recommend that you take before you take that exam. So it's not a huge amount. And as part of the exam, you build an application, and then you answer questions based on that application. And as long as you get a pass mark of 70% or above, then you get a certificate and a digital badge from us that you can put on your LinkedIn and CV, all of that type of stuff. Okay,
great. Well, Lucy, we're not asking you to go anywhere, but I will bring on Dr. Pittges now, Dr. Jeff Pittges, who is a professor at the University of Radford. Hello, Jeff. How's it going?
Very good. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. So let's hear a little bit about who is Jeff? What do you do? What do you teach at the university?
Sure. So I started at Radford University in 2006. So I'm starting my 15th year this year. Prior to that, I spent a little over 20 years in industry, including over 10 years in Silicon Valley, working at 5 different startups. I worked at Red Brick Systems, which was Ralph Kimball's pioneering data warehousing company. I was in the query compiler team there. And then the next couple of companies I worked at, we actually used the Red Brick Systems warehouse to do web traffic analysis, campaign and marketing analytics. So I've been doing data warehousing really since the late 80s and have kind of migrated into data science as the field has evolved.
All right, awesome. And I know you've been involved with Qlik's academic program. So maybe talk a bit about the journey that you guys took and, when did you start working with Qlik's academic program?
Sure. So I was actually working at Rackspace in the summer of 2012. I was a BI fellow there doing business intelligence for them, trying to help their customer support team be a little more efficient, a little more productive. And they asked me to build some dashboards, and they said, we use Qlik. And I had never heard of Qlik before. And I think it might have been the end of my first day using Qlik. I was already emailing asking if they had an academic program. And if I remember correctly, I was the second professor to actually join Qlik's academic program. Fantastic program. And I have been using Qlik in my classes since 2012.
So who was the first professor? Who are you competing with?
But I was told I was number 2, which is good because you don't want to actually be the first.
Yeah. That's very true. Very true. So what exactly do you use Qlik for in your classroom?
Sure. So we spend 4 to 5 weeks learning about data visualization principles with the goal of being able to communicate effectively with data, which is really important, particularly when you get into industry. You're going to be working with a lot of people who are not data engineers. And then we get into dashboards, which is one of the most important ways that companies are able to monitor performance, identify problems, drill into the details and solve problems. And that's where Qlik comes into the class. We do everything in our program at enterprise scale. The initial tools that we use are desktop tools. Industries don't run on desktop tools. So Qlik is really the only, or at least the best enterprise level dashboard system that I have worked with. And getting students that exposure to what it's like to work at an enterprise level with dashboards, where a business user who can't spell SQL is able to point their browser at a dashboard at some graphics and very quickly see what's happening and what's going on. They don't have to install and launch a desktop tool. They don't have to go get any data. They just point their browser and they're seeing the metrics that are most important to them to help them make better decisions. That's what I want our students to see, to understand. And obviously I want them to get some experience with that tool so that they're able to go out in industry and hit the ground running.
Yeah, first question, how do you spell SQL again?
Yeah.
So Shelly here thinks you're a trendsetter. Good job for being the second professor.
Well, true. I got lucky. I mean, again, if it hadn't been for Rackspace, I don't know that I would have found Qlik. And they used it. They love it. It's their preferred platform. So I was fortunate.
And Ravid's here. He's saying, hello, Lucy and Jeff. Nice to meet you. He's looking forward to the amazing session, data ruling. All right, awesome. So, okay, let me just see any more comments, questions coming in. Okay, so you mentioned making sure that your students are prepared for the industry after they leave your classroom. Let's talk a bit about the future and how data literacy skills and data visualization skills are going to be used in the future. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I do a lot of consulting, and more companies are trying to develop a data-driven culture. What that means is they want every single employee in the company to be making decisions based on data, because then they have the facts. And studies have found that 80%, up to 80% of employees are data illiterate, which is one of the reasons why I think it's so great that Qlik offers that free data literacy class, because if you're asking your company to be data-driven, you're asking your company to start making decisions with data, and you've got a majority of your employees that either aren't comfortable with data or might even be intimidated with data, this just isn't going to work. So I think, our program, we're preparing our students to be leaders in this space, leaders in how to build the data infrastructure that's required to support that data-driven culture. And we're teaching them tools like Qlik that help them to communicate effectively with data, so that people who aren't as comfortable with data maybe don't feel like they're dealing with data, because Qlik is basically sending a very clear message. So I think we're doing an important job here of training the data professionals, and then ultimately those professionals are going to go out and hopefully help those companies with their transition to the data-driven culture they're trying to get to.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, companies and software like Qlik make it so easy for data analysts or students, I taught my 13-year-old nephew how to use one of these tools, and in 5 minutes he was writing calculated fields. But the problem becomes when they don't understand the underlying data, right? That data literacy aspect of things. You can use the tools and make it really easy. It's like taking a hammer and banging randomly across tables. Like for you to actually understand what you're doing, you have to learn data literacy. So I love that Qlik's investing and providing that information for free.
And that's one thing I'll add here is that I had 8 graduate students this past spring.
Yeah.
And this was the first time that I had actually used Qlik, and I had them all, their assignment was to tell me about their experience and show me something that they did. And I was just overwhelmed with how positive the feedback was from the students, how easy Qlik was for them to use. And again, that's the majority of the employees in a company aren't actually going to use Qlik. But when you give professionals a tool that's so easy to use, they can just start creating data all over the place. And again, that just builds that culture. It's very easy to use, and the graphics and the visuals very clear to communicate with.
Absolutely. There's a question here, I think maybe more for Lucy, from Caroline asking, is this program available at any time?
Yeah, it's available to apply absolutely anytime. So what will happen is once you sign up and once your application is approved, you'll have access for a year. But if after that initial year, you're still a professor or a student, if you're still enrolled at the university, you can just reapply.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I see a note here from Nitika saying she just visited the site. It's got great content and she's just started with one. So that's good. You got another student.
Perfect. Great.
Awesome.
Good stuff.
A question here from Ravid saying, Qlik offers data literacy class. When does this start? This is all pre-recorded online, right? Just to...
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's all available on demand. So again, with the data literacy stuff, I actually sat for the data literacy certification myself last year and went through all the training. And yeah, it's all available on demand, just whenever's good for you, which is perfect.
Okay, perfect. Question here from Jillian. She's asking, Lucy, can you give folks some good resources for data literacy since we have so many courses? Yeah, where would you get started from?
So there's a data literacy page specifically. Julian, I don't know if you want to post the link to the data literacy kind of content page in there.
Yeah,
that would be great. So there's stuff on kind of foundation. It's really nicely broken down into sections actually on that page, so you can kind of work through everything step by step. But there's stuff on kind of different analytical concepts in there, and then there's stuff on data-driven workplaces as well, critical thinking. So it depends kind of exactly which sort of area you want to tackle things from. But the page breaks it up really nicely.
Yeah, so I've got the page up here. I think this is the right one, right? Qlik's data literacy program.
This is the data literacy program. And then if you scroll down a little bit further.
Education, consulting services. It's got a lot of stuff on here. I know you guys have this quiz that you can take here, the data literacy assessment. Yeah. I've taken this maybe a year or so ago. I did really well, so I'm data literate. Yeah, you guys can take an assessment to see how data literate you are. And I'll share this link.
Cool. Actually, Kate, if you click the data literacy courses page, just on the...
This one?
Yeah, exactly. That's the page where you'll see all of the data literacy content.
Okay.
And like I said, it's broken down into about 5 or 6 different sections on there.
Okay.
So that's a really good place to start.
Yeah, this is great. All right. I hope everyone who's listening takes advantage of this. Free resources are always good, but you have to take advantage of those.
Yes, absolutely. And that is available to absolutely anybody. So even if, I know there's quite a few people that mentioned they're in the other category. So even if you're not a student or professor, that data literacy stuff is available to you as well.
Yeah, that's a good thing to point out. Last question here before I bring in Noah. So do we need to pay in order to access this?
No, everything that we're talking about today is completely free.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Lucy. All right, without further ado, we're going to bring in Noah to the stage. Hello.
Hello. Great to be here.
Welcome to the show. Thanks for being here. All right, so Noah, you're currently a grad student at the University of Radford, yes?
That's correct.
That's correct. Good, I got one right. So what are you currently studying there?
So the name of the program is Data and Information Management, or we call it DAME for short. It's not just DAME. It's quick and easy. Yeah. So it's not focused on just like data science or data visualization. It's pretty much, if it involves data, we go over it at some point. So that's anything from like just SQL data management with like something like Oracle, the cybersecurity behind protecting your data, And we do have the data warehousing stuff, the data mining with Python and Spark. And then, of course, we do have the visualization stuff. We use Python for that as well. Then we use Tableau and also Qlik this past semester. And this semester, we're going over stuff like distributed database management systems, learning how that works, and also how an enterprise can learn how to have a efficient information architecture in their workplace. So a broad range of stuff, everything involving data, we pretty much talk about it a little bit.
Awesome. I'm sure the companies are just waiting for you to graduate so you can be hired.
I hope so.
So are you currently, is Dr. Pittges currently your professor, or he was your professor?
No, he's still my professor. He teaches 2 classes for me this semester. So, yep. Tuesday and Thursdays.
Are you being graded on the session here, or this part?
I don't know. Hopefully I'll get some bonus points.
For this.
Awesome. So Noah, tell us a little bit about how you use Qlik's academic program and how you took advantage of some of their resources.
Yeah, so we went over the academic program last semester, which was all about data visualization and reporting and stuff like that. And so we used Qlik since and used that to just play around with it. We went over the business analyst course. It's one of the academic programs available. And so we just signed up for that. I think the course took like anywhere from 8 to 10 hours. We went through that. It was really great just getting into the mind of like what a business analyst would do to bring some important insights to the company. Because like you can really have all the data in the world and just have tons and tons of data, but if you don't know how to turn that information into valuable assets that the company can run with, it's just kind of irrelevant at that point. So this course kind of gave a good overview about how to transition from that data and analyze it and to make it more useful information.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. We actually have a question here for you, similar to what I was going to ask. But first, let me ask, when are you graduating?
So I graduate in 1 year. I got 2 semesters left. So next May. Next May.
Here he comes. All right. The question from Shelly here is, where do you see yourself in 3 years? What is your dream job?
So something I'm really passionate about is analyzing like societal and cultural behavioral changes to drive like investment decisions for a company. So I could see myself working for like maybe a hedge fund or one of the big investment firms like Vanguard or Fidelity or Charles Schwab. I just really love just seeing how society and culture changes over time and analyzing that data to see, hey, where are the trends heading? What are people interested in now? And getting companies ready to fully take advantage of that momentum.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for that. So I know we briefly started chatting with Dr. Pittges on data literacy, but wanted to get your thoughts on where do you think data literacy fits into this whole space?
Yeah, so like Dr. Pittges mentioned, if your company is not being driven by data, you're probably going to get left behind in the next decade. That's just the facts. But you can't have just one person like a data scientist or the data engineering team being in control of analyzing all that data and telling people what they should do with it. You really need people from all the departments to be at least aware of, hey, what does this data mean? How can we use this? And so data literacy is really important for people to have, to just be able to act upon information provided by your data scientists or data analysts and just really understand what it all means.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely agree. And I've seen this happen too many times where, like I said, the tools make it so easy for everyone and anyone to get their hands on data. And there's typically a big push for data democratization. Everyone needs to have access to data, but you need to educate them on how to actually use that data properly. So you can be data driven, but driven in the right way, right? You can't just look at data and do exactly what it says. I think it's a combination of that domain expertise plus the data.
Exactly.
So we've got a question here. Might be for Lucy, might be for one of you. Basically, while Qlik is intuitive, how does it enhance visual analytics? Can you give an example?
Well, we're actually going to show a screenshot here a little later that I think will make this very clear, but I'll let Noah or Lucy talk more to this question.
you're probably more familiar, Lucy, than I am, so you can go ahead and talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I guess it depends what you mean in terms of enhanced.
Lucy, sorry, your mic. You've been raising
sorry.
it and it's been great. Yes, thank you.
Sorry, yes.
I'm showing you
That was
like
better. So yeah, I guess it depends exactly what you mean in terms of enhanced visual analytics. But basically what you can do in Qlik is bring just the raw data in. So whether that's like an Excel spreadsheet or a database or whatever. And you can create a whole different range of visualizations. You can let Qlik suggest what visualization you should be created based on the data, or you can kind of select your own if you have a preference. And then you can kind of go through and, if you want to change the colors to be relevant to your organization's colors, as an example, you can do that. If you want to bring in imagery as well to make the application more interesting, you can do that. So there's a whole different lot of ways that you can do it. But I think, like Jeff said, when you see the example a bit later on, hopefully that will make things a bit clearer for you.
Yeah, and I would say you can make it as complicated as you want. You could let Qlik Sense just say, hey, we see these fields here. I think this would be a cool visual to do. Or you could really just dive in and make it as complicated as you want. It's what you make of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Jeff.
I want to talk real quickly about one feature with that Qlik was the leader, and they did this first, and now some of the other tools out there are trying to replicate the same thing. But when you load data in, and you can load data from multiple data sources, so you can bring an Excel spreadsheet in, you can connect to a database, you can have multiple sources. And the great thing about Qlik is all of that data gets integrated in main memory, so it's super fast. They have a very efficient data structures there that are keeping that data in main memory. And they built an association engine. Again, they were the first to do it. When I click on one visual, say for example, I'm showing trends over 3 years, and I want to click on a particular quarter of a year, every other visual on that page then changes to show the data for that. So in other words, the filter gets applied to everything. It makes it very, very fast and efficient to be clicking around with your data and see how everything is changing, because Qlik automatically detects those associations. That was one of the features that blew me away when I first started using Qlik, and again, that's just very intuitive to use.
Yeah, absolutely. I love everyone's answer. I'll just add one quick thing. And I saw this at a Qlik conference probably 2 years ago. This pandemic has thrown off all of my time frames, but it was probably last year. But there was something called, I think, Insight Bot, where you can actually just type in a question and say, how were my sales last year? And then you'll actually get a visualization. So that's another way it enhances the visual analytics. So thank you for that. I'm actually going to go ahead and bring in Steve Oake. Hello, Steve. Thank you so much for your patience. I'm so glad you're able to join us.
Thank you for inviting me today.
And look, and your audio works. This is great. So everything works great. I'm very happy you're here. So Steve, why don't you tell the world, tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I graduated from Radford's program, the DAME program, about 2 years ago, sorry. And since then, I've been working as a data analyst. First, I was working in the finance industry, and now I'm working in healthcare.
Okay, finance and healthcare. So how are you seeing that transition going from finance to healthcare? That's actually interesting.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, sure. How are you seeing the transition going from the finance industry to healthcare?
The transition actually wasn't that bad because you're working with data. What you're doing is you're massaging the data into a product that managers can make decisions based on, and so it really doesn't matter what the industry that you're working in. You use the core skills are all the same. You're just taking it from one place to another. So right now I'm working on an enterprise data warehouse team, creating SQL queries that are used to build the dashboard. So pulling data from multiple databases within the system. As you can imagine, we're a hospital system with 14,000 employees, so we generate a lot of data. So my job is to go and find that data, put it into a nice package so that the dashboards can be built.
Yeah, absolutely. I love how the data analytics and data science field, the skills are very much transferable across multiple industries and sectors.
Yeah. So, I'm sorry, can you repeat that question once more? I'm having
No,
a little
it wasn't a question. Can you not hear me? I was just saying that I love how the data section makes it easy for us to transfer our skills across industries and cross sectors.
Of course, yeah. I mean, what you learn in these programs, in these graduate programs, are the core skills that you're going to need, and then when you get out in the industry, you actually start expanding on those.
Yes, absolutely. So, question back to when you were at Radford University. So you were a grad student studying the same thing that Noah's studying now, right? That DAME program.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to speak directly into the microphone, make sure you hear me. So the question I have for you is, when you were still at Radford University, how did the Qlik Sense program or Qlik Sense in general help you while you were at the university?
I mean, well, for me, I'll be honest with you. When I got into the graduate program, I didn't want to do data analysts at all. I really wanted to focus more on DBA type of work, saving data, querying the data. But when I got into Dr. Pittges' class and he asked us to work on a project using Qlik, it opened up my eyes to the possibilities of working with data and how to present it better. Because I mean, just you can type out a query and get a bunch of data, and it looks like a spreadsheet for the most part, and that's pretty boring, and it doesn't really provide you that insight. So I got excited when I was able to actually start seeing that, hey, there's a better way of presenting this data, and Qlik actually, the Qlik dashboard project actually opened up my eyes to possibilities.
Awesome, that's great. So we have a question here for Noah and Steve. Question from Jesse here. If you were to sum up the value of what you've learned so far for Noah and what you learned, Steve, in the DAME program into 3 things, what would they be?
Do you want to go first, Steve, since you've already been to the program?
Go ahead, Noah. Go ahead. You can start.
Okay, I'll start. So into 3 things. So I'd say 1 will be the data analyst side. So just really being able to communicate effectively with people that may not be as technical as you are. So really taking that data and presenting it in a way that anybody can understand. That's one value that I've really learned and harnessed. Because this program is really, I mean, it is technical, but you also learn a lot about just communicating effectively. That's a huge part of the program. And then I'd say just having a bunch more skills added under my tool belt, like learning more about Python, getting into Qlik and Tableau, getting into things like Spark and Cassandra, just learning a bunch of new tools that are used out there in the workplace. So I can say, hey, I can help you out with this. That's another thing that's really valuable. And for a third thing, I'm trying to think of something right off the spot here, but also just working with a team. The graduate program, we're a small group of people. We're working together all the time and just learning things from one another. Somebody's strengths might be my weakness, and my strengths might be somebody else's weakness. And so we just bounce ideas off each other and help each other out. And I found it really valuable to just know that you don't have to know everything, because somebody out there is probably better than you at it, but you may be better at them at other things. So just focus on your strengths and just get the most you can from everybody that you interact with.
Yeah, absolutely. I love especially that last thing about working as a team. It's so important, especially when you're working in industry. I'm glad that your university is preparing you for this, because you can't know it all. You have to accept that you won't know it all. Becoming really good at a few things and knowing that you need to lean on other people, and basically like a team sport, right? So you have to work to accomplish that.
Yeah.
Awesome. So over to Steve. Same question.
Well, for me, one of the things I learned was that it's not so much the tool that's important for what you're working with is it's how you work the tools, if that makes any sense. Because we were exposed to a very wide range of for databases. For example, we work with Cassandra, SQL Server, or MySQL, Oracle, of course. We work with Hadoop. So it was really. It really wasn't so much about how you stored the data, but finding the right solution for your particular need at that time. So probably the next thing that I learned was actually how to teach myself how to use something, if that makes any sense. At the undergrad level of courses, you're kind of fed how to work with things. Where you get into grad school, you're given a project and you're saying, okay, this is what we need, and then you're kind of set free to go work on it and come up with the solutions and all that. More like how you would work in industry. I mean, in industry, you got a boss who says, "I want something," and that's what you got to go and do. You got to figure out the solution. Yeah. The third thing I probably learned was again presenting data in different formats, whether it was using dashboards or it was using R to build a report or something along those lines. It was presenting data was probably a big part.
Okay, yeah, we actually have a question here from the audience for you, Steve. What kind of challenges did you face in that transition of healthcare to finance? I know we briefly touched on the transition, but did you have any challenges during that transition?
I think the challenges are going to be the same no matter what. Whenever you start a new job and you're working with data, especially, the biggest challenge is probably learning where the data is within the system. We all know what a table is. We all know what a schema is. What we have to figure out is how this particular company is applying those tools to store their data. That's probably it wasn't so much, I had to learn the basics of working in banking, and I had to learn the basics of and I'm still learning the basics of working in Medicare. Yes. Or medical care. So, but that's probably not the biggest challenge because we have subject matter experts that we can ask questions of. It's finding the data and figuring out how this particular company stores their data. It's probably the biggest challenge.
So I'll ask Steve this: going from finance to healthcare, how big of a hurdle is it to deal with like HIPAA and stuff like that when it comes to using that data? Because there's probably a lot of roadblocks and hurdles between like actually getting access to medical data and actually doing stuff with it,
Well, for me, working on the enterprise data warehouse team, I don't really have those hurdles because I have the gold keys to the data. So it really is. It is just the hurdle of how are they storing it, because we're not looking at data at an individual level. We're looking at it as they need to know that for example in 2020 at clinic XYZ, how many people were treated for diabetes. So I got to figure out, let's even do a better example. How many doctors treated patients for diabetes? Well, now we got two different systems. We got the healthcare enterprise level system that we got to grab data from, finding who treated somebody with diabetes. And then we actually got to go to our human resources system and pull in the data about the provider. So it's just figuring out how these systems all work together.
Gotcha.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks for adding that. And when you mentioned your last number 3 was actually very similar to Noah's, when you said working with the domain experts, that goes hand in hand with working with the other team members of the data team. Basically, we have to include the domain experts in there as well.
Yes.
So without further ado, Steve or Jeff, you guys want to show the dashboard? It's a moment of unveiling here. We've got a visual to show you guys.
Sure.
Exciting stuff.
I'll set it up just real quickly. Our university's Office of Sustainability put monitors into several of our dorms, and the monitors were showing the consumption of water, steam, and electricity. And the goal, of course, was to conserve.
Mhm.
And some of the dorms would actually compete for prizes to see who conserved the most over a particular week or maybe a month. And so those dashboards were really helpful if you were seeing that you were high on water. Maybe you didn't take a shower for a few days. Okay, just kidding. But you could watch, and you actually knew how you were doing, which is the purpose of a dashboard, is to monitor performance. The tool that they had been using was very expensive, and so I knew the director of the office, and I had Steve and another graduate student work on developing that dashboard. And at the time, Radford University was using Cognos, and I knew that Cognos was going to be a challenging learning curve. And we took the project on anyway. And I don't know, Steve, how long was it? Maybe 4 or 5 weeks into the project, you came to me and said, "Look, we're just not going to get this done with Cognos." And I said, "Okay, then let's abandon that and let's do Qlik." And within like 1 week, these guys were done with the project. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to show you just one of the dashboards, one of the graphics that they came up with for this project to show electricity.
All right. Well, Jeff, while you pull that up, so you said this is in the dorm and you get prizes for conservation. I mean, immediately I start thinking people are just going to shower at somebody else's dorm just to win the prize.
Yeah. That would actually serve two purposes, right?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Making the other dorm worse, and you'd be making your dorm better. So that's pretty smart.
Exactly. So we've got the
So,
I mean, you have to be competitive. So
actually, this project, we actually created two different sets of dashboards. We created one with View, and we created this one with Sense. The View one was the one that was going to be going into the dormitories for the students to play with. But this was a little side project that wasn't actually asked for. It was kind of hinted towards, but it really wasn't asked for. And what we were doing with this one was creating a management level dashboard, which the decision makers could actually take a look at each of the two halls and look at their data by the day. And the very top bar graph will actually show you last month's consumption with a line graph versus this month's for each of the days. And if you were to click on each of those, you would actually be able to drill down to that day, showing all 24 hours consumption. And if you were to click on another one of click on it again, it would drill down to the metrics are either based on 5 minutes or 15 minutes, depending on if it was steam, electricity, or water. So what we did is with this is the most important part of the visual was the bar graph. So we placed that at the top left-hand corner, and we actually placed it at the very top, spanning the whole top. Then we added some additional details down below with the latest consumption versus. So that would be today's consumption at kilowatts. And then we had a comparison beside that with the yellow, green, and red bar graph, comparing it against yesterday's consumption. And then we continued that theme over to the right-hand side of the screen, but we were looking at a month-by-month comparison. So this is this month's to-date usage in kilowatts versus, and then the bar graph showing compared to last month's.
Okay.
One of the things that I learned from this project, we were working with our facilities group. One of the things I learned is that they have to manage electricity very carefully. They have certain parameters with the electric provider. And if they have a spike for just 5 minutes, they can completely blow out their budget for the whole year. So having a dashboard like this for the university enables them to see where the spikes tend to happen, kind of predict where a spike might be, and then take some corrective action. Steve actually designed a schema that went right down to an individual room.
Oh, wow.
So we could look, for example, they have sensors on the windows, and we could look to see which rooms in the dorm had the windows open and what was that doing to their power consumption. The university would not give us that data. Speaking about HIPAA, they felt that that was a little too sensitive to give to a bunch of graduate students.
Yeah.
But the university has the capability to go all the way down to that detail and be able to tell specific students in specific rooms that, we're going to fine you if you don't start closing your windows because you're costing us too much money. So really a great project in terms of adding value to the university while giving these students the opportunity to work on a real world project and deliver something very valuable with Qlik.
And actually, we were actually bringing in external data on that particular view too, which was the weather for that time period. So we could actually do a correlation that they have the windows open while it was minus 22 degrees outside.
Yeah, I think that's great. And Jeff, I love how you told us about the privacy concerns, because that's exactly what I was thinking when you were saying sensors on the windows, like, right, so people can know my window's open, they can climb in. I don't know. It just seems a little bit scary there.
Yeah.
Not that they would want to. It's just a thought, It's
Right.
uneasiness. But thank you for sharing that. Did you have one more that you wanted to show us?
That was all we had prepared.
Okay, perfect. I just want to confirm before I go back into questions. So I did have a question for Lucy again. So do professors or students actually have to use Qlik to benefit from the educational materials like the data literacy stuff?
No, they don't. So, like Noah said, in a lot of courses, we know that students will be looking at a range of different tools, because that's also what happens in industry as well. Often one individual company might use a range of different tools. So, we really encourage students to get to grips with a few different tools. But certainly the data literacy content and our data analytics curriculum that we have. So in there's topics like the psychology of design, critical and analytical thinking, and those kind of topics are not at all Qlik specific, so they're kind of purely theoretical. So you can kind of apply those to whatever tools that you're learning.
And we actually did have a question here for Noah. So George Fairkin was asking, what's the one thing you would do differently if you were starting this again? This came in when you were talking about your school experience.
Starting like the program again, like the master's program, is that what you're referring to?
Your actual grad program. That's when this question came in. So.
That's a good question. I don't know. I think I did everything the way I wanted to, and everything just kind of worked out perfectly for me. So I don't think I would change anything about it.
That's great.
Why don't we change the question just a little bit, Noah? Tell us the one thing you did that you think helped you to be super successful in the program.
Yeah, just like in undergrad, I have a BS in computer science, and one of the things that led me to go to this program was that not many of the aspects of computer science like really interest me, but the one thing that really did interest me was the data side of it. And so just going off on your own, learning courses on Udemy or Coursera or whatever, learning more about data, taking internships, taking any opportunity thrown at you, because we all know that if you want anything, it's not just going to drop on your doorstep. You got to go out and get it. So take any opportunity that's thrown at you, go out there, learn as much as you can. And yeah, that's what I'd say. Yeah,
absolutely. And you've got some fans here, Noah. So Valerie said if she could buy stock in future grads, she'd buy a stock in Noah. So,
well, thank you, Valerie. I appreciate that.
Awesome. I love that. Thank you, Noah. I think that's great advice. Definitely don't sit and wait for things to simply happen. You have to. There are so many resources available right now. I think it makes it more difficult for people because they're like, I don't know where to start. But I think starting anywhere, once you start, you'll find a way.
The hardest part is just getting started, but once you're there, the ball just kind of keeps rolling.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. So, Lucy, question here from Cheryl asking, what is the time investment weekly for the program on average?
That can really be completely up to the individual student or professor. So the time investment as Noah mentioned, there's a data analyst kind of track that you can follow, or a data architect track. depending on whether you're kind of a more or less technical student. And the time that we kind of recommend, the learning time we recommend to be able to sit them for the ClickSense qualifications in relation to those is around sort of 16 hours. So, if you do 4 hours a week for 4 weeks, by that point, you should then be ready to kind of, you've got your foundation, you can build basic visualizations in ClickSense, and you'd be ready to sit for that qualification. So yeah, it really depends. We have lecturers that we work with that fully integrate Qlik into their classroom as part of their courses. And we have full lecture slides available for those lecturers as well, if they want to use those on our kind of theoretical topics. Equally, we have a lot of students on the program who aren't studying Qlik within the classroom, aren't studying analytics within the classroom, but they really recognize this need to become data literate, ready for the workforce. So they will then take the complete other approach and just do all of the kind of online self-study learning in their own time, at their own pace. So it can really be flexible depending on what time you've got available.
Awesome. Thank you for that. One more question for you. I don't know, Lucy, if you have the stats around this, but are the universities, meaning students and professors that are taking advantage of this program, are they mainly from the data analytics, data science programs, or do you have more people coming in from,
I would say, in my experience, certainly in Europe, it's a good mixture between kind of computer science, data analytics courses versus business schools. So we work with a lot of business schools, a lot of people on, say, operations management courses, marketing courses, a lot of MBAs. And obviously with the MBAs, that can be people that are just taking a year out to come back to study to then further their careers. So those are the kind of two main tracks, I'd say. But then also we have students that might be studying health and looking at health analytics. We work with other universities doing sports analytics courses. So it really can be a whole different range of study areas.
Okay, thank you. We got a question here from Valerie. So Noah or Steve, has your DAME training caused you to think differently about how you use data in your personal life? And what kind of data literacy training do you think everyone should have, like all your friends and family? So what should grandma know, right? Data literacy wise.
Yeah, so I'll answer that first question first. Really, it's changed everything. Like, you can see with the pandemic right now, you see so many dashboards. Suddenly, everybody's a data scientist now. And just looking at this data and being like, is this really what's going on? Is that really what's happening? Is this accurate? You just kind of look at everything and be like, not really question it, but being like, how did they get access to this data? Did they, are they misleading people? Or are they anything like that? So just looking at anything like that, you kind of see, like, you start to think, how do they get this data? How do they handle this data? Are they doing it correctly? And also, like, I can't even scroll through Twitter now without thinking like, oh, this is a trend I should keep an eye out for, or maybe this is a future investment opportunity here that I should keep an eye on. Stuff like that. So yeah, it's really changed how I think about everything.
Makes you question everything now. I agree.
Makes you question everything.
Very, very questionable things on the news. I was just showing a chart to somebody that was online about COVID, right? Showing trends in the data, and it was clearly an inaccurate dashboard where you can see the numbers going up, but the bars are getting smaller. So it's like, is that intentional or is that an accident?
Oh, yeah.
How can you even do that accidentally, right? Like, you can't create that in any visualization software. You have to really hard code it in there.
Yeah, that's the worst. Seeing like one bar being 500 and the bar beside it being 1,000, but it's only like 1 inch higher and not double. I'm like, you got to try to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
I actually saw a COVID graph where they rearranged the dates because they wanted the trend to be in a particular way. So the dates were not sequential, but the data was the way they wanted it to.
Oh, wait, Jeff, do they have to be sequential, really?
That's not a mistake. That was absolutely intentional. So I'm really happy to see Noah talk about the fact that he's become a skeptical consumer of data. That, I think, is the biggest part of data literacy, is helping people to recognize that you can't just believe a visual because it's a visual. Data can't just be believed. You've got to look a little deeper. So yay to Noah and everybody else who's learned that lesson.
Yeah. For that second question, I don't know if Steve or maybe Lucy, you can touch on what do you think that they can take Qlik's data literacy program if they're not, let's say, a professional working in the corporate world? Can just anyone take that program and get value from it?
Yeah, absolutely. So all the training is out there for anybody, as long as you have a Qlik ID. So you just sign up for a Qlik ID.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you've got that, you can access all of that. And it doesn't matter, whether you're employed, unemployed, a student, retired, whatever. You can access all of those courses and the data literacy certification as well.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Well, guys, I think this was an amazing session. I want to thank everybody for joining, and thank you for the LinkedIn and YouTube live audience for joining us. There is going to be a recording of this both on LinkedIn and YouTube after the session. But before I completely wrap up, I'd like to ask the guests to just let the audience know if they wanted to continue the conversation, where is the best place to find you? Is it LinkedIn, Twitter? What do you prefer? So maybe we start with Lucy. Where can people find you?
LinkedIn, I would say, is the best place to find me. And I'm sure if you just search Lucy Bannister Qlik, I'll pop up and you'll see my picture.
Yeah, but it was pretty easy to find you. Jeff,
Perfect.
How about you?
Either LinkedIn or just go to the Radford University website. I'm kind of all over the place there. It shouldn't be too hard to find me, and I'm happy to speak with anybody who has interest in data.
Perfect. Steve, where can people find you?
The quickest way to find me would be through LinkedIn, actually, and just shoot me a message, and I'd be glad to answer any questions that come up.
Absolutely. LinkedIn's popular here. And Noah, where can people reach you?
It's going to be a shocker, but I'm going to say you can find me on LinkedIn. Probably the best way to get a hold of me quickly, but I probably won't use it as a main communication platform, but I'd be happy to give you my email or something once you contact me on LinkedIn, and we can go as deep as you want to.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. And just there's one last question here. It's how to get the recorded session. It's actually going to just stay on LinkedIn. So if you're watching it now, you can simply scroll back or refresh your page and you'll see the recording. Or you could go to Story by Data, which is my YouTube channel, where you can also get the recording. All right. Well, thank you all for joining again, and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.